So let's look at example 1 of one proportion hypotheses. A survey indicated that 45% of employees hate their jobs. A local boss believes that less than 45% of his employees hate their jobs. The company surveyed 150 employees and 35 reported that they hated their jobs. Using a 0.10 level of significance, what conclusions can be made on based on the p-value? All right. So we have the percentage of 45 with the local boss believing that less than 45% of his employees hate their jobs. Now we need to know the direction of the alternative hypothesis. So because he believes it's less than, I'm going to choose this scenario right here. And again, I'm just pulling that from my table of hypotheses. So I took that 45% and I converted it into a decimal. So then my null is P is greater than or equal to 0.45, and my alternative is P is less than 0.45. So I also know X is the number of individuals in the sample who are in that specific category of hating their job. So 35 is the number, the sample size is 150, and my level of significance is 0.10. And I'm going to pop back up to my slide so we can look at it, okay? So from this previous slide, 35 reported they hated their job. So let me say that again. 35 out of the 150 said they hated their job. So that means 115 don't hate their job. Okay, so again, and here's the distribution. So 0.45 is my P, 0.45 times 0.55, because that's Q. Remember, Q is 1 minus P after you make P a decimal, divided by 150, which is my total sample size, and take the square root of that. If I put that in my calculator, I get 0.041. And I would say, rule of thumb, do 3 decimal places for that. Okay. All right, so we're going to do this in Minitab. All right. Going to go to the Minitab. I'm going to go stats, basic statistics, one proportion test. So I'm going to pick summarize data. And we talked about this before in the first video where I can have raw data or summarized. For this class, I'm going to give you summarized. It's just going to make it easier. Number of events is 35. Number of trials is 150. I click here to perform a hypothesis test, and I put 0.45. When I go to options, I'm going to do 90 because I had 10% level of significance. I'm going to pick the less than because remember, my alternative had the less than symbol in it, and I want normal approximation. There's something going on in statistics where binomials can approximate the normal distribution. That's what's going on here. You don't have to worry about the theory behind it. Just know we call this, and you might have seen this in some part of this class, we call this a 1 proportion Z test. So I want to take my proportion test and make it approximate that pretty bell shape. This step right here allows me to do it. I hit OK, and I hit OK, and I get my information. Okay, so it's telling me I'm doing a 1 proportion test. It gives me 150 as my sample size, 35 is my event, sample P, which is 35 divided by 150. It gives me the upper bound of a 90% confidence level. So I've got my so here's my hypotheses, okay? And the most important thing, remember, is that less than symbol. Z value is negative 5.33, and my P value is 0. And again, in the hypotheses, I have everything you need right here, showing you how I did that so that you can follow along if you get lost. All right, so let's conclude it. Again, I got my test statistic, which is negative 5.33. I got my p-value, which is 0. So when I look at my alpha and my p-value, I get 0.00 is less than 0.10. And let me be very specific about this. This is my p-value, okay? So that's what I'm comparing. So since my p-value is less than my alpha, I reject the null. My decision, because my p-value, I need to be very exact about this so I'm not confusing. My p-value was smaller than my level of significance. We did this before with the 1 mean and the 2 mean test. At the 10% level of significance, there is significant evidence to show a local boss's belief that less than 45 of his employees hate their job is true. Because we didn't see that. If I go back here, roughly 23% of his people don't enjoy their job. So that's how I got that. So again, because I rejected the null and said it was false, that makes less than 45% of his employees hate their job.